Welcome to the Lean Lounge, a podcast brought to you by Lean Revisions. Please welcome your host, Jeff Gray.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lean Lounge. My name is Jeff Gray, and I'm your host here on the Lean Lounge. And I'm the CEO from Lean Revisions, where all things lean are possible. And today I have some special guests, Sam and Sidney Morgan. They are both consultants, so this should be a very interesting conversation. And we're all living in Washington State. I'm in the Seattle area, and they're right across from like Portland down there. Welcome to the show, you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Jeff. Good to be here.
All right. And before we talk to them, you guys, let's see who they are, what they're about, so we can get into our conversation today.
Sidney Morgan, a Black and Indigenous woman of color, is the founder of Red Sea Road Consulting, LLC. Sidney seeks to support people, communities, and organizations in building and maintaining relationships through a restorative and transformative justice lens. She also develops group facilitation processes for those seeking supported work. Her spaces are held with a focus on healing-centered engagement and racial equity. Through the Golden Repair Restorative and Transformative Justice Institute, Sidney offers restorative justice and transformative justice training. Sidney also offers executive coaching with a three-pronged approach of visioning, surfacing strengths and gaps, and building our strengths while shrinking our gaps. Sam Morgan has been stuck before too. He always did what he thought everyone wanted him to do. Since finding the glorious world of continuous improvement, the last 6 years has been a journey of personal and professional growth for Sam, operating from a place of fear to one of confidence. From playing the safe route as an operations analyst at an insurance company to making the leap and launching his own coaching business. Today, he's helping everyone from SMB founders, analysts, plant managers, and lean entrepreneurs and leaders to get unstuck and boss their lives while making a mark in the world in ways they've only dreamed of.
That was great. Good job.
Yeah, that was cool. I liked how both Sidney and I, we sent in without even like conferring with each other the same picture of us together from a trip to the beach here in the last couple of weeks. So I thought that was kind of.
That's your minds working together, right?
That's what 22 years together gets you right there. You're sending the same photos for a podcast interview.
22 years you guys have been married?
Yeah. So we're coming up on it here in September. So yeah, it's
congratulations. You have 3 kids, it look like, in their pictures?
Yes.
Yes, and if you listen close enough, you might hear them from the other room. They're playing a video game together, or two daughters. So.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, it is summertime. So yeah. What are their ages?
Oh gosh, 19, 16, and 13.
Oh, okay, teenagers. All right, good. That's a handful, but at least they're
been through that already, though, Jeff. You know what that's like.
Oh yeah. Well, welcome to the show, you guys. Your introduction. Both of you are consultants. One of you doing lean, Sam. It looks like, and Sidney, you're doing a lot of social work and justice work and that kind of stuff. Is that right?
Yeah, group facilitation. We call it conflict transformation work, sort of in our, sort of workspace. But it's meeting people where they're at the crossroad or intersection of something that's really hard that they need support getting through. So work a lot with organizations who need help moving some things when they get stuck.
Is it workforce stuff too, or just business, or all kinds of social things? Or
yeah, I mean, across context. I have clients who are big organizations, in the medical field, and then I have an organization, a client who they put on film festivals, and they as a group want to be more cohesive, and they noticed that they were having some challenges relationally internally they put on a great show, but on the back end they were having some real hard times, and so they asked me to come and do some group facilitation work for them too, kind of centering around building their relationships stronger. So yeah, I mean, across context.
I love that because, I work in a lot of organizations and it's all about the culture and the teaming and the leadership and the little groups of people who are in their own little cliques and stuff like that. And you can't be a good oiled, well-running machine if you have those kind of things going on. And so it sounds like you go in there and you kind of assess that and figure out a plan and a strategy of attack. Is that how you?
Yeah. So they usually reach out and say, most of the time they reach out and say, we're on fire. I don't think anything can be fixed. Can you help us? Right? Like that's essentially the idea. And I'm like, ooh, okay, that sounds dire. But then once you talk to people and you kind of get into like, what led up to this, what's been the patterns, what's been the history, culture, all the things you just named that are right on that play a part in their overall organizational health and well-being, right? And then you go, oh, okay, so it's this, and this, and here's what we can do to sort of start pulling at that knot, right? And sort of helping them to kind of unravel it a little bit. And then they're like, oh, I just needed to talk this, like, yes, we move forward, but part of that, like, we're in so much trouble, I don't see a way out, versus like, oh, okay, I just needed to talk to someone who could tell me, here are all the parts, even maybe the things I didn't see. And, oh, actually, it's doable. Actually, we can move through this, even though it might be hard conversation or conversations to have together. All is not lost.
Yeah, it sounds like that goes in anything, families, friends, relationships. We spend a lot of time at work in organizations, and the bigger the organization, the more I'm sure the complexity and the turning the ship around in the right direction. And I've worked at huge groups, Microsoft, Starbucks, Capital One, Boeing. They all have different cultures. And so it sounds like it's a culture shift that you're really helping people understand. How long does it take to get things moving in the right direction? Is there a timeline, a roadmap, a engagement strategy?
It varies. I tell folks, what do what's your end goal? What do you want to see happen? What do you want to see that will be lasting so that you don't have to be on emergency mode all the time. And a big challenge for a lot of organizations at clients that I work with, they were in a hurry to get something fixed, and they don't want to stop their work in addition to that, right? And I don't say stop your work, but I do say your work's you're gonna have to approach it differently. And sometimes that's really hard to envision and see when what we've always done is what we've always done, right? And so part of that is, do you want to pivot? And if you do, like, what are the opportunities and possibilities there for you if you do? So going from like, oh, I don't know if we can do that, to what opportunity and possibility is there if you do, right? Less challenges and issues that are probably costing you a lot of money, right? At this point, and your bottom line, and all those kinds of things. So generally speaking, on average, anywhere from maybe 3 to 6 months, in terms of like big pieces that we do to really sort of unravel the knot, dialogues, conflict, sort of, mediations in a way. And then once they get through that part, they're like, okay, well, now we need to like restructure. So then there's a conversation around, what does that look like, right? And so then that's the back end work. Now we've moved through that fire.
Yeah.
We're on the other side. What seeds do we need to plant? What structure do we need to have? How do we get to move differently so that we learned from this moment versus continuing to go back into this moment?
Yeah, you have to sustain it. Yes, that's true. Once you put all the hard work into it, you have to sustain it. Yeah. So do you bring Sam in when you finally have them on a path and then he can fix their systems? Is that how you guys work together? Or
Our paths have not crossed in our work,
Yeah.
actually. No. And not to say that it can't or that it won't. But we haven't intentionally like put it together Uh, and I think what we do is very parallel too.
Yes.
So it's not like off. We've talked about it a ton. We've talked about it a lot around like, oh man, what would it mean to partner on some things? And so it's not off the table. We just haven't initially come to the intersection yet.
I would say it's interesting when she was describing how she operates with helping people kind of like, okay, what is it that you're wanting to do? We need you to picture like what you want to accomplish. And that's what I do when I coach like leaders or entrepreneurs. We start with that. And it's the whole like pattern of the improvement kata. Where do you want to be? You got to picture it. What does it look like? How will you know? What's the reason why? Okay, where are you at right now in relation? Like she does those processes where she's talking to them. Okay, how are things going right now? Okay, in 2 weeks, how can we make this better? So again, like the target conditions, and then like trying little things to see how we can move forward towards getting there. So I think like Sidney saying, like there's definitely parallels there. And I think because I would say like relatively speaking, compared to someone like yourself or when, I mean, Sid's been on the journey for like 4 or 5 years now as an entrepreneur. I'm just like 1.5 years, 2 years. So I think down the road, as we she's found her sea legs, I'm still kind of gaining traction right now. And as we kind of find that, I would expect that there's gonna be more opportunities for us to do that. And like just being here with you and having this conversation, I think will be a great way to kind of, navigate that and maybe start that process.
Yeah. And even, like one piece when you go in, because Sam, you and I go into organizations, large and small, any type of industry, and we do that assessment. And then from that, you might find there's one piece in one organization or, one system that you can say, hey, honey, let's, excuse me, I don't know if he calls you honey or not. Sorry, Sidney.
All right.
But hey, maybe we can take one of your modules and begin to, let's try it at a small, do a pilot. And that's what it's all about, is that piloting. And because I go in and Sam, we have, the first thing we do is we look at the culture and the leadership. Where are they at? And where's the workforce? And what both of you were saying was, I call it the IFR, the ideal final result.
Oh, cool. I like that. Yeah.
That's that target. That's that goal. When I go into any organization and we do that gimbal walk with leadership, okay, what's your IFR? Middle manager, what's your IFR? Frontline. And they're all different. Well, they're not on the same page. We have an issue.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so that's where you get the culture. That's where you get the problems. That's where you get the miscommunication. And then, that's when we're all trying to come together and help them. But we don't always have all the tools in our toolbox. I always reach out. I might call Sidney tomorrow. Hey, I got a client that, or I might call Sam. Hey, Sam, that exercise you had us do at the Global Lean Summit last year, I have a client who can fit right in here. Can you come in for a couple of days and help them with that? So that's what it's all about. We don't at Lean Revisions have all the answers, but we know where to go. I tell people that too. Let's do that assessment. And that's why I like, talking to everybody in the industry, seeing what their forte is. And then when we need it, we can reach out to each other, and these things like the Global Summit, where there's going to be a lot of consultants in September. That's where I met you last year. And I thought your presentation was very unique, young man. Very cool.
Well, I don't know if you saw this, but on that opening video, I was wearing a hoodie that was actually from I went to this a couple weeks back. I went to this, I don't know, it's called a summer camp, but it's called Kata Together. And it's basically I like to call it like a workshop, like conference. Come together for a week and we practice the pattern of the improvement kata and learn the coaching kata. Like we actually get in. It's not just like, hey, here's a whole bunch of information. Here's some practices or workshops or activities to help us continue to grow our practice. And so in that activity that you saw there, where we worked on a puzzle and we kind of practiced the whole experimenting cycle, right? I think what Mike Rother, who kind of, his whole thesis is what helped kind of found this practice and the pattern that he took from going in to investigate from Toyota, how do they do their problem solving? What is the practices that management uses to be able to develop and create this culture? So when he was first kind of experimenting with the pattern, he would tell everybody, okay, you got to kata that shit, right? So that was the name of the presentation, right? Because it's all about practicing the form. Sid is a black belt in martial arts, and that's what they talk about. Is it's like a practice, like the kata, the form, something that you repeat over and over and over again. And so he would tell everybody, okay, we got to kata that, and that was where the sweater that you saw in there came from, that a graphic from the presentation. But that really, it's like a funny phrase. It's really, to me, it's a way of life, right? Like always constantly practicing. And one of the things that I really admire about Sid, last year, actually, we were at, she was sharing at an event, and she was talking about her practice. And when they asked her, what do you want to be introduced as? She says, I'm a restorative justice practitioner. And I think as lean folks who practice continuous improvement, we are practitioners. We're not experts. We're not like the one with all the answers, right? We are constantly practicing and learning. And so that's why I appreciate being on the journey with her and folks like yourself who, we don't have all the answers. We're just practicing and learning with each other.
Yeah. And what I like to do, a lot of good nuggets in there, Sam. What I like to do is I tell people, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to give you the tools that I have seen work in this situation. Here's how other groups have applied it. And it's what you come up with for your group and your culture and your organization, whether large or small, for your customers, for your workforce, for your business, for your revenue generation, for your operating cost reduction. I mean, all of those things, we have a lot of tools in our toolbox. And by doing this for years, I've been doing this for a longer than you guys probably put together. I'm a little older than y'all. But I can assess and say, here's what I've seen. Try these tools, and let's get through all the mud until we see the clear water. And that's what I really like about doing this. It's a challenge. I mean, it's great. And talking to the people new who've been there, a couple months to a couple years to been there 20 years, and bringing them all together, because we're all thinking differently and have different wants and needs and things that they're challenged with. So that's why I like speaking to everybody in this, and you notice I say the lean umbrella, because people just think it's just like gather some data, map a process, implement some solutions. It's not. It's the whole assessment of the operation. And it's like you said, Sidney, the feeling, what are people don't take the feelings and emotions when you drive into work on Monday. Today's Monday. If you got up today and you're heading to your car to go to work and you went, oh man, here we go again, something's wrong. If you go to someone like at Starbucks, at the baristas, I know we all go there, and they smile, how's your day? And they ask you, I said, how's your day? What do you like about this job? And they tell you the culture, the leadership, the boss, or sometimes they'll roll their eyes and they're like, yeah, I'm looking for another gig here after this. That's what we're all about here, is trying to figure that out and help them through that. So Sam, how did you start doing lean? What's your background?
Yeah. So, I really learned about lean probably 8 or 9 years ago. And it came from, I was in a contact center environment and then got pulled into an operations role, which I'd never even heard of. Got brought into kind of the quality assurance team and learned about processes. And then the whole company was doing like a company-wide kind of lean rollout. And so, my coworkers were like, oh, you would really love this. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I went in, they did the whole, people probably heard of the red bead game, but they did that and some other activities, and I was like, my mind was just like, this is my jam, right? I love this. So I started just going out there and reading books like the 2-Second Lean, watching videos and going to workshops, and then learning about A3s, and then actually practicing it and doing it. A coworker of mine put on a workshop. I asked my manager we were doing daily huddles, like they were going to come. They hadn't come to our group yet, but I was like, hey, can we do it? Can we just do like talk about waste every day and all this? And I was just really passionate about it. And then eventually, over time, I wanted to learn more about it. There was roles at the company, and I applied for the role multiple times, applied for leadership roles, and those never panned out. So eventually it came to the point where I was like, okay, I'm going to step out on my own. And my partner here was encouraging me to do that. And I did this really cool activity called fear setting, where I a couple hours and just reflected on, okay, what's the direction I'm headed? Like, what's the decision I'm afraid of making, starting my own business? Okay. What are the worst case scenarios? Okay. What's a countermeasure to those, using lean terms? And then if that happens, what could you do after that? Then after that reflection, I really looked at, okay, if I make this choice to go on my own, there's good things and things that are hard that could come from this. I may not be the next Tony Robbins as a kata coach, but good things are going to, like, there's good benefits from it, from just going out on my own. And then the last thing was looking 6 months, a year, 3 years down the road. If I don't make this choice to do this, what's my experience? What's my feelings going to be like? And after 2 hours of doing that, I sat in the library. It's a really important place to me because my mom's a retired kids librarian after 30 years. So it really grounds me to go there. I did a lot of reflection, and I came at the end of that and I said, I can do this. Like, that was the final reflection. And for someone who always did what he was supposed to, always took the path of least resistance, to choose a path of entrepreneurship where there is like resistance all along the way, that was really a crazy moment for me. And so now, since last January 1st, I've been doing it. November 3rd of 2022 is when I hit that resignation, sent on that resignation email. And January 1st year, it's been a journey ever since, of constantly doing what we practice, like experimenting and trying things and setting challenges and learning all along the way. And I'm thankful to have a partner like this along the way who's supported me, because she's practicing it in her day to day as well as, and has done quite well. Thank you for that.
Right. So that's a good role model and a mentor, coach, and support. That's very true. Because, yeah, man, you said a whole bunch of nuggets there. We could talk for 2 hours. I like the fact that reflection and that risk mitigation is what I'm kind of hearing you say too. The pros and cons, what's that thing we have our people do? We have the pros and the cons, and we see force field analysis kind of thing, the goods and bads, what's keeping me, the constraint, all that kind of stuff sounds to me like what I was visioning was you putting all that together, your hosting plan. What is it? What your risk, and your challenges? Because you've got family, you got kids, you've got, everything. But you're young. If you fail, go get a job, restructure, come back. That's the kind of thing that people need to think about too. And I like what you said, is you've put that plan. And what you've just said, businesses, leaders, GM, CEOs can think of that same thing. I wonder how many of them who are listening to this take 2 hours to the library and just think about, how am I running my business?
Yeah.
How am I leading this organization? What are our challenges? Am I respected in the industry, or do people, talk behind my back? Am I invited to the barbecue on the 4th of July?
Well, you know what, I think it's interesting, Jeff, because with the people that I coach and people that I talk to on the regular basis, and be interested to hear what Sid, like, her experience with leaders is. But one of the biggest gaps that I hear from people all the time is, like, I'll sit down for an hour and talk to somebody, and at the very end, I'll ask them, like, what was the most valuable part? Oh, just being able to process, right? So even though we have these processes, okay, where do you want to be? Where are you at? What are the steps you're taking? Like, those are all important, but having a space to be able to process and reflect, I'd say, like, a client of mine, he even said that after a time, like, one of my biggest things that I'm taking away is I need to have intentional time to reflect. I don't do that. I'm constantly, like, I'm running the business, which is great. And, like, even for folks that are operationally minded and who are in this path, like, you need to not just do your PDCA, right? Like, you got to step back and actually take what you learn from that and actually, what did I, like, what I need to process and reflect. Okay, now what am I going to do from what I've learned? Because you can do all of that, but if you don't step back, what did I learn? And now what am I going to do? Then it's all wasted, honestly. So I don't know if you do that in your practice with the folks that you do process with, but.
Yeah, there's a lot around risk taking, but also a lot around, are you self-reflecting? And I have a client where I'm coaching folks sort of around West Coast states. They're in it's a foundation that supports environmental work and environmental coalitions. And I do executive coaching for all of their directors across these several states on the West. And so, it's been a 3-year project with this foundation. So it's been really great work. So I'm doing these coaching sessions with folks, and one of the clients was like, it wasn't really coming to our sessions, was like super busy, but everybody can be super busy, right? And so anyway, so they show up to one of the sessions and we're talking and I'm sharing with them some tools. And they're kind of skeptical at first, like, oh, is this another one of those assessments? You're going to tell me something, right? Or whatever. And it wasn't even like that. I just introduced this framework and I said, what do you think about it? What sits with you, what doesn't, whatever. And so, so after kind of getting through that, one of the things they mentioned was like, yeah, you know what? I don't really self-reflect. And I was like, well, you lead a whole bunch of people. So I'm going to guess you need to sharpen that tool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, yikes, like, how do you even take feedback? How do you even, like, if you're not self-reflecting, friend, like, how are you growing? Right? Like, how are you growing? And this is a person who's younger and they feel like they know quite a bit. And maybe they do, but you don't know everything, and also like, how are you learning and growing? Like that was like our main sort of piece around our session after that. And anyway, like just sort of after that, they have now been showing up to the sessions and now like opening up a little bit more around like where their sort of protective factors are. And I find that a lot with folks that I work with in leadership. It's like getting through the like, I don't really need this. I'm just, whatever. And I'm like, okay. I mean, your folks offered it up, like, so you take advantage of it or not, right? But what are you losing, or the potential growth parts for you if you don't? And so, yeah, so a lot around that. I mean, a lot of the same stuff.
When I go into organizations and we start talking about lean, someone who knows it or knows they need it, brings us in. Or there's problems, they're losing money, revenue, market share, the whole thing. They're having issues, constraints and challenges. And I tell them, I say, look, when we come into here, we're going to pick your current and future leaders. So who are they throughout the industry? Because they're going to be the ones who get the ball rolling. And I don't know if you saw our thing last year. It's been a year. You've probably been to many things now, Sam. But we talked about, your early adapters to lean and organizational change and transformation and leadership. It's only going to be about 15 or 20% of those people on the first Zoom or the first podcast. Only about 15 or 20% are going to go, that's it, let's go. Now you got to take that other 80%. 30% of those are like, I'm going to see what Sam and Sidney are all about. I'm going to play it safe. Those 20% can either succeed or fail. If they succeed, I'm going to be the first ones on the boat. And then you're going to pull the next 30%, but you're always going to have that 15% at the tail end. They are going to never jump on the boat.
Right, exactly.
And even if you throw them a life preserver, the dinghy, whatever. So those are not your current or future leaders, then, but that's kind of how I go the approach. Let's get those wins. Let's get the information. Let's get the knowledge to those people who are going to lead the charge. Then let's bring their next wave on. And then you've got the wave going, now you're surfing along and, so that's kind of the approach that we take, because when I first started doing this at Boeing, I was making airplane parts when I was, 20 something years old, going to college, working full time, going to school full time. And they plucked me off the floor and said, hey, Jeff, you're going to help us do this continuous quality improvement stuff. And I was like, what is that? And so if you see my picture, they sent me over here to meet Dr. Deming back in DC. I didn't know what any of this stuff was. He told me about process and statistics and all this stuff. And my job was to go back out and the organization in the interiors building up in Everett to make 4.7s and 6.7s and train 900 people on this stuff that they had just taught me.
Wow.
You know how much resistance I had going out into a union shop when I was 24, 25 years old and trying to teach someone to map a process, because it was a very structured hierarchy, organization. It was a challenge. But the key thing was one of my best friends, his dad was the superintendent. And this was so funny. We'd go over there like every Friday, and he was the one leading in our organization. Like, there was like 3,000-4,000 people, and he'd sit there and he'd go, hey, Jeff, hey, Sean, who do I need to motivate this week? we'd say, well, this GM over here was talking to me, yelling at me, blowing his cigarette smoke in my face while he's talking to me in the shop, telling me, when you get gray hair, you can tell me what to do. I said, he needs some motivation.
That's right.
So he would have these meetings every Friday at the end of the Friday at 3:00. And he'd keep those people behind for like 2 hours and have them talk about what they're doing to make the organization better. I thought that was great, but they were still, hanging on and resisting. And some were like, hey, Jeff, can you help me? Hey, Jeff, I don't want to be yelled at. Am I on the list this week? And so it gave us power to make that transformation. But that was, that was 25, 30 years ago, you guys. Yeah. Yeah. But that's the transition that I went through. And that's what I learned is you can't change the whole organization at once. You have to pick those people. And that's when we do that assessment. And we ask leadership. It's not your favorite. It's not your drinking buddy, Seahawks Sunday. It's the people who are actually in there who can help you make that change and meet the IFR. And so I love what you guys are doing, collectively there. Just doing the same thing, just a little different approach. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that's what's gotten us to think about being able to partner. In fact, when we were celebrating our 20th year anniversary, I guess a year and a half, 2 years ago in Hawaii, and we were sitting there while the waves were coming in, and we were having this conversation even then about just the parallels and how we approach helping people and just being excited about that opportunity. And I think that helps us too in our relationship, for sure, knowing that we're coming from kind of that similar mindset and approach to solving problems, right? Like problems are problems in a relationship, parenting. Of course, we're perfect parents, so all our kids are just,
we have a large therapy fund, Jeff.
That's right. That's right. That's very important. Forget about the college fund. Have like a
therapy fund. Which that's we messed you up.
That's right. That's right.
You'll be
stick that in there.
Especially the 13 and 16. Yeah, you've messed them all up.
Yeah. But like it's having that same mindset. So it's a like business, family, marriage, like approach to life. And I think that has served us well to be able to navigate those challenges that come up. And it's really, really cool. And then looking forward and hoping and thinking more about, okay, what are the ways that we can use those to help even more people?
Love it, you guys. Love it. I knew you'd be awesome on the show. That's why I, asked you to come on here because, like I said, we could talk for 2 more hours. This is what I love. It's just a conversation about, what we do and how we like what we do. You can tell we like what we do. We're engaged. It's great to help people. It's great to go into a whole new organization. They go, like you said, Sidney, we're burning help. It's beyond help. And you go, hold on. I got the hose. Let me just put out some of these fires. Let's brush away the embers. And okay, there we are. I like that. That's what we do. How can people, Sidney, get a hold of you and your organization? Would you have contact information, a website? I know Sam has a podcast. We'll talk about that in a second. But how do people get a hold of you for anything that you can help them with?
Yeah, my website, which gets quite a bit of traffic. If anybody Googles restorative justice practitioner in like the PNW, right, the Pacific Northwest in specific, I pop up. So most of my reach out is website related. I am on Instagram under the Golden Repair Institute, which is my restorative justice and transformative justice institute training, which organizations can take and individuals can take. There's tracks for both of that. And because I find that when I go in to do these processes and this work, right, folks are like, oh, we need training. Like once they're done with that, they're like, we really like this. We want to implement this somewhere in our organization. How can we go further? And so have cohorts that come through and organizations can do that. So I'm on Instagram under that. And then my website, Red Sea Road Consulting.
And Sam, how about you? How can people, what your forte in the lean is Kaizen, or do you do strategic engagements? What do you do exactly?
So I'm really focused right now on coaching and supporting entrepreneurs and leaders who are in lean and are just struggling, especially folks who are like have kind of maybe my story can resonate, where they've got really passionate about it. They're looking for opportunities, and they're coming up against like maybe corporate roadblocks or challenges with well-meaning organizations, but they just don't have structures set up to help people really thrive and grow in their journey. But they're like, oh man, I really, really want to make an impact. So I love helping those folks move from the corporate world to doing and launching their own business, and using kind of these lean frameworks to help them do it. So there's the principles that you're already familiar with, but using those to help you launch off on your own. Or if you're maybe a small business owner, you've got 100 some odd employees, and you need someone to be able to help you get clear on where you're headed, like these things that we talked about, where you're at, where you want to be, and experimenting. So helping you get clear and taking that opportunity to reflect so that you can get clarity and move forward. So those are the kind of folks that I love helping. And it's been a journey and an honor to do that. And so if folks want to contact, LinkedIn is a really great way, or Sam at illuminatecoach.com.
Yeah. And you also do a podcast on LinkedIn, right?
I do it once a month. I am on now. I used to do it a couple times a week, but decided to kind of take a step back and just do that. But it's lean coaching for lean coaches. So if you're would like to jump on and get like 30 minutes of coaching to help you, what's really cool about that is other folks in the lean space will come and take part in the conversation and can learn and be encouraged through that as well. So
yeah, I love that. Yeah, I liked when I've been on once, and then I think I've chimed in a couple of times, but having practitioners talk about challenges and things and a topic, and we're learning from each other, and they're from all over the place, and that's what's good about the network too.
Yes,
we're all over the place, and we learn from each other. If we can help our clients and organizations and stuff too. So all right, thank you guys very much. Appreciate it. Good to see you. We'll talk to you soon.
For more information on today's show, visit leanrevisions.com. This podcast is hosted by Jeff Gray, produced and edited by Make Your Day Richer. Special thanks to our studio sponsor, KPI Fire. Promotional consideration paid for by the following.